the weaponization of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So get out your sake. Part number 13.
State troopers surround the prison to prevent demonstrations. Again, there are none. The hours pass slowly. Julius Rosenberg, now 35, his wife Ethel, now 37, married 14 years in one day, parents of 2 boys, tonight dined on hard-boiled eggs, macaroni salad, and tea. There was no time for the usual last meal. Their fate is decided in Washington. And here is that story from David Brinkley.
In these last minutes before the Rosenbergs are electrocuted at Sing Sing prison, here's how in Washington today their attorneys went through the last possible legal maneuvers to save them. It began at noon at the Supreme Court. Normally quiet, but today surrounded by groups of the curious. The court met at noon. At 12:06, it announced a decision to end the Rosenberg stay of execution. That was a stay granted 2 days ago by Justice Douglas. That seemed to be the end, but it wasn't. Their attorneys promptly asked for another stay while they appealed to President Eisenhower again for clemency. The court said it would consider it. Meanwhile, the lobbyists who came to Washington to work for the Rosenbergs kept up their parade in front of the White House. People riding by in automobiles shouted and asked why they didn't go to Russia. But there was no other disorder, so the police left them alone. They even sang a little song somebody wrote especially for this occasion, but the picketing and singing did them no good. Because at the Supreme Court by this time, the government's lawyers, having won their case, were leaving. The court had refused again to delay the execution. A few minutes later, Emanuel Bloch, chief counsel, came out and read us a telegram he had sent to the president.
For sake of American tradition, prestige, and influence, urge redress for Rosenbergs. Demand you be afforded sufficient time to consider this serious matter.
The president's answer came quickly. Here it is, read by a White House press officer.
The following is part of a statement just issued by the President of the United States. I am convinced that the only conclusion to be drawn from the history of this case is that the Rosenbergs have received the benefit of every safeguard which American justice can provide. There is no question in my mind that their original trial and the long series of appeals constitute the fullest measure of justice and due process of law. Throughout the innumerable...
So they must die! Now I picked up on this one a long time ago, maybe 2-3 years ago, but I have never done a video on it. So, we go to the so-called guilty parties, Julius and Ethel Rosenberg. Look at them behind the bars there. Aren't they a sweet couple? So the name Rosenberg actually has a meaning of a rose mountain. And it might be an indication of the cult of the Rosicrucians using their powers on the public. So rather than beginning with the man, I'm going to begin with the woman, namely Ethel Rosenberg. Ethel Rosenberg on your left, and Kay Marvis, second wife of Groucho Marx, Change of pictures. You still have a high percentage of match with Ethel Rosenberg on the left, the guilty woman selling secrets to the Russians of the atomic bomb. And Kay Marvis, second wife of Groucho Marx. Well, we'll do a third one. You still get that high percentage even if you go with 3 different attempts. So let's go to Groucho. I like to call him Gaucho. Julius Rosenberg on the left and Julius Marx on the right. Now I bet you didn't know that that was his actual name, Julius. So isn't it interesting that there's a Julius Rosenberg who's going to get executed for selling secrets to the Soviets, to the Russians, about an atomic bomb? Now I picked up on this a long time ago, maybe 3 years ago. And a while back I was watching a special on Groucho Marx. And because Groucho Marx used the cigar and the painted on mustache and the high heavy eyebrows, literally he could leave his house or his apartment and go out into the public without a paparazzi, without a following. Because most people could not recognize the man that we know as Groucho Marx, Julius Marx, without his famous costumes on. His heavy eyebrows, his mustache, and his cigar. So there you have a 62%. Now that's my highest one, which I'm really proud of, because the Julius Marx, or the Groucho Marx on your right, is much older than the Julius Rosenberg, or Julius Marx, on your left. But you can see that it's one and the same, correct? That one's not as high, but it doesn't stop me. And that one's not as high, but it doesn't stop me. So I'll go back to my more famous one, and that's the 69%. So if you go back to the Wikipedia, you'll see that Groucho Marx is born Julius Henry Marx. Don't tell me it's just a coincidence. It's Julius Rosenberg. It's executed. How many Juliuses do you know other than Julius Caesar? Well, anyhow, they're going to be executed. It was all film.
Complications and technicalities of this case, no judge has ever expressed any doubt that they committed most serious acts of espionage. Accordingly, only most extraordinary circumstances could warrant executive intervention in the case. When democracy's enemies have been judged guilty of a crime as horrible as that of which the Rosenbergs were convicted, when the legal processes of democracy have been marshaled to their maximum strength to protect the lives of convicted spies, when in their most solemn judgment the tribunals of the United States have adjudged them guilty and the sentence just, I will not intervene in this matter.
The President and the Attorney General were standing by to the last in case the Rosenbergs decided at the last minute they wanted to talk. Now, back to New York.
Today, this unassuming building near the old cell block is the Sing Sing vocational shop. But the origins of this structure will forever be intertwined with perhaps the most controversial means of punishment ever devised by man. This was once the Sing Sing death house, the home of the electric chair.
Okay, you get the idea. It was all film now. Atomic bombs do not exist. Therefore, spies who sell atomic secrets do not exist. This was real, R-E-E-L. A film reel. Groucho Marx and his second wife, Kay Marvis, played Julius and Ethel Rosenberg. So nobody died and nobody got hurt in Sing Sing prison for the Rosenberg execution. And Groucho Marx and the Marx brothers were probably laughing and laughing and laughing, more so at this movie than any other movies that Groucho ever made. Thank you for watching. End of video.